Warrior Cat time. Yo guys, welcome to my live stream. Today I'm gonna read Warrior Cat. Alright. I don't know if anyone is watching me right now. Oh, my cat is so cute. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. That's for you cannot see guys look. I love her so much. She's so kind. She's a kind cat. She probably would be like, you would be a royal cat, huh? No? What the hell? This is funny for some reason. I don't know why. She would be a missing cat. I don't know. Or an elder cat. Yeah, I probably would see her as a warrior cat. I mean, yeah, warrior. Because she's every time at 5 a.m. She's like running around and chasing around things. But she's a bit lazy. Yeah, because of the better effect. Yeah, she's not anymore a warrior. I mean, she can be a medicine cat. I forgot two things, but I have to get them out of it. Are you happy? Yes, your little name, happy. Okay. Damn it. I just love her. She's so cute. Yeah, now just okay. Ah. Still I'm live. No, I want out of this. Oh, she's on my desk now. Okay. She's gonna jump. I'm on live. It's like one of the worst way to make a okay. So, yeah. There are a few people watching already. You so personally I'm gonna rate this book called Warrior Cat to an audiobook. Because I don't like to read. I would like to hear, not to read. And Arya wants to get out, so I'm gonna open the door for her. Come on, Arya! You're free for my misery. Alright. Gonna prepare myself. That's where I just look where I lay. I listen to the Warrior Cat thing story. And yeah. I think I'm gonna start soon. Let's not check. You see this blood? You see this blood, my friend. Thank you, Junior. Thank you, Junior. You better read Warrior Cat, or else. Okay, never mind. Alright, enough of this. I'm gonna start reading, even though I've read like I'm just rereading again, so I can't not forgot. I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna force him. I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna call Tenko Junior. I'm calling him right now. Calling for fucking Warrior Cat. Yo, yo, Tenko Junior. I'm on live. Well, I heard something. Yeah, look, you're alive. Look, I'm. Oh my god, why am? So I'm gonna start again ready this Mario Kart, and yeah, I'm waiting for you. Thank you, Junior. Yes. Do you see me live? Oh. Whew. So yeah, I'm gonna start soon. Do you want to start right now, or are you like not ready? Okay, we're gonna start now. Do you want to stay on call, or I just end it to call? Like, do you want to stay on call, or because what if your parents here? I mean, your girlfriend. I don't know. Do you want to end the call, or do you want to stay on call? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna end the call. I'm sorry. Oh, I can stay on call. Okay, that's good. Okay, okay. So we're gonna start. I'm gonna start trading. We're gonna start trading together. What if we bring Zia as well? He's gonna be like so confused. Zebra, zebra. If he's probably like closely at work, but doesn't matter. You and me are listening, so that's the thing. That's the pure thing. So yeah, I'm gonna put my headset on. Let's see just.
So the two apprentices continue.
Wait, I cannot hear it. Yeah, I have to fix something. Fix. Oh no, I can hear. Okay. All right. Wildcat, Ravenpaw, Firepaw. Okay, let's go. Okay. I'm I'm gonna lay here. Thank you, Jin. You know, I'm laying here because I don't feel comfortable like stay on chair. Ah. Okay, I'm gonna start now. 3, 2, 1, go.
Along the stream. So, what does a badger look like? Firepaw asked as they prowled along, sniffing to either side. Black and white, short legs. You'll know one when you meet one. They're bad-tempered, lumbering animals. They're less likely to raid the nursery than a fox, but they have a vicious bite. How do you think old Halftail earned his name? He hasn't been able to climb a tree since a badger bit his tail off. Why not? Scared of falling. A cat needs his tail if he wants to land on his feet. It helps him spin in midair. Firepaw nodded in understanding. As Firepaw had predicted, hunting was good that day. Before long, Greypaw had pounced on a small mouse, and Firepaw had caught a thrush. It quickly took its life. No time to practice killing techniques today. There were too many hungry mouths waiting back at camp. Firepaw kicked earth over the prey so that it would be safe from predators until he came back for it. Suddenly, a squirrel broke cover. Firepaw burst into action. "After it!" he called, pelting it full stretch over the springy woodland floor with Greypaw at his heels. They slid to a halt as the squirrel scampered upward into a birch. "Lost it!" Greypaw growled in disappointment. Panting, the two cats stopped to catch their breath. The acrid stench that hit their mouths and noses surprised them. "The thunder path," Firepaw mewed. "I didn't realize we'd come so far." The two cats edged forward to peer out of the forest at the great dark path. It was the first time they had been here alone. A trail of noisy creatures growled along the hard surface, their dead eyes staring straight ahead. "Yuck!" Greypaw snorted. "Those monsters really stink." Firepaw twitched his ears in agreement. The choking smells made his throat sting. "Have you ever been across the thunder path?" he mewed. Greypaw shook his head. Firepaw took a step out of the cover of the forest. A border of oily grass lay between the trees and the thunder path. He crept slowly out onto it. and then shrank back as a stinking monster hurtled past. "Hey! Where are you going?" Greypaw mewed. Firepaw didn't reply. He waited till there were no monsters in sight. Then he edged forward again, across the grass, right to the edge of the path. Cautiously, he reached out a paw to touch it. It felt warm, almost sticky, heated by the sun. He looked up, staring across the thunder path. Was that a pair of eyes glinting out of the forest on the other side? He sniffed the air, but smelled nothing except the stench of the great gray path. The eyes on the other side were still shining in the shadows. Then they blinked slowly. Firepaw was sure now. It was a Shadow Clan warrior, and it was staring straight at him. "Firepaw!" Greypaw's voice made Firepaw jump, just as a huge monster, taller than a tree, roared past his nose. The wind from it almost toppled him over. Firepaw turned and ran as fast as he could back into the safety of the forest. "You mouse-brained fool!" spat Greypaw. His whiskers trembled with fear and anger. "What were you doing?" "I just wondered what the thunder path felt like," Firepaw muttered. His whiskers were trembling too. "Come on," hissed Greypaw edgily. "Let's get out of here." Firepaw followed Greypaw as he leaped away back into the forest. Once they were a safe distance from the thunder path, Greypaw stopped to catch his breath. Firepaw sat down and began to lick his ruffled fur. "I think I saw a Shadow Clan warrior," he mewed between licks, "in the forest on the other side of the thunder path." "A Shadow Clan warrior?" echoed Greypaw, his eyes wide. "Really?" "I'm pretty sure." "Well, it's a good thing that monster came past when it did," retorted Greypaw. "Where there's one Shadow Clan warrior, there's more, and we're no match for them yet. We'd better get out of here." He looked up at the sun, which was almost directly overhead. "I'd better get a move on if I want to meet that patrol on time," he mewed. "See you later." He sprang away into the undergrowth, calling as he went, "You never know. Lionheart might let me come and help you with the hunting once I've delivered this message." Firepaw watched him go. He envied Greypaw, wishing he were off to join a warrior patrol. But at least he'd have something to tell Dustpaw and Sandpaw when he returned to camp. Today, he had seen his first Shadow Clan warrior. Chapter 7. Firepaw retraced his steps and headed back toward the stream.
Yo.
He thought of those eyes burning from the darkness of the Shadow Clan territory. Suddenly, he caught a faint smell on the breeze. A stranger, perhaps that Shadow Clan warrior. Instantly, a growl rumbled
W for your girlfriend. Alright.
in Firepaw's throat. The scent message told him many things. The stranger was a she-cat, not young, and definitely not from ThunderClan. She carried no distinct scent from any of the clans, but Firepaw could tell she was tired, hungry, and sick, and she was in an ugly mood. Dropping low, Firepaw moved forward, heading toward the scent. Then he paused in puzzlement. The warrior's scent was fainter now. He sniffed again. Suddenly, with a lightning movement, a snarling ball of fur burst from the bushes behind him. Firepaw screeched in shock as the she-cat slammed into him, knocking him sideways. Two heavy paws clamped down onto his shoulders, and iron jaws closed around the back of his neck. "Wow!" he grunted, already thinking fast. If the other cat were to sink its fangs too deep, it would all be over. He forced himself to go limp, relaxing his muscles as if in submission, and let out a pretend howl of alarm. The she-cat opened her mouth to give a triumphant yowl. "Ah, a puny apprentice. Easy prey for Yellowfang," she hissed. At the insult, Firepaw felt a surge of fury. Just wait. He'd show this coughed-up furball what kind of warrior he was. But not yet, he told himself. Wait until you feel her teeth again. Yellowfang bit down. Firepaw surged upward with all the strength in his powerful young body. The she-cat gave a snarl of surprise as she was thrown clear. She tumbled backward into a gorse bush. Firepaw shook himself. Not such easy prey, huh? Yellowfang hissed defiance as she tore herself free from the clinging branches. Not bad, young apprentice.
Okay, I'm just gonna put the subtitle so you can read. Oh, my balls. Alright, that's better, no?
She spat back. But you'll need to do a lot better. Firepaw blinked when he saw his opponent clearly for the first time. The she-cat had a broad, almost flat face and round orange eyes. Her dark gray fur was long and matted into smelly clumps. Her ears were torn and ragged, and her muzzle was traced with the scars of many old battles. Firepaw stood his ground. He puffed out his chest and glared a challenge into the intruder's face. You're in ThunderClan's hunting ground. Move on! Who's going to make me? Yellowfang drew back her lip defiantly, exposing stained and broken teeth. I will hunt. Then I will leave. Or maybe I'll just stay a while. Enough talk, Firepaw spat, feeling the stir of ancient cat spirits deep inside him. There was no trace of the house cat in him now. His warrior blood was up. He was itching to fight, to defend his territory and protect his clan. Yellowfang seemed to sense the change in him. Her fierce orange eyes sparked with new respect. Dipping her head and breaking eye contact, she started to back off. No need to be hasty now, she purred in a silky tone. Firepaw wasn't fooled by her trickery. Claws extended and fur on end, he leaped forward, his war cry ringing out. Roar! With a hiss of rage, the other cat responded, snarling and spitting, young cat and old locked together. They rolled over and over, teeth and claws flashing. Ears pressed flat to his head, Firepaw fought to get a grip, but the she-cat's clumpy fur snagged in his claws, and he couldn't break through to skin. Then Yellowfang reared up on her back legs. With her filthy tail bristling, she looked even bigger. Firepaw sensed Yellowfang's huge jaws lunging toward him. He leaned backward just in time. Snap! Bared teeth closed on the air next to his ear. Instinctively, Firepaw lashed out with a back swipe. His paw caught the side of Yellowfang's head. The force of it sent shock waves up his front leg. Yow! Stunned, Yellowfang dropped onto four paws. She shook her head to clear it. In the single heartbeat before the she-cat recovered, Firepaw saw his chance. He threw himself forward, crouching low, and clamped his jaws tight on Yellowfang's back leg. The taste of the matted fur was horrible, but he chomped down hard. Yellowfang screamed in agony and whipped around to snap at Firepaw's tail. Her teeth connected, and pain lanced up Firepaw's spine. But it only made him angrier. He ripped his tail from his opponent's grip and lashed it back and forth in rage. Yellowfang crouched, ready for a fresh attack. Her breath seemed to wheeze up from her foul-smelling lungs. The scent blasted Firepaw's nose. Up close, the message of desperation and weakness, and the aching void of the she-cat's hunger was almost painful. Something stirred inside him, an unwarrior-like feeling he didn't want. Pity. He tried not to dwell on this instinct. He knew his loyalty must be to his clan, but he couldn't shake free of it. You speak from your heart, young Firepaw. Lionheart's words echoed in his head once more. This will make you a stronger warrior one day. Then Tigerclaw's warning rang in his ears. Or it might make him give in to kitty pet weakness right at the moment of attack. Yellowfang lunged forward, and Firepaw jerked instantly back into aggression. The bigger cat tried to reach up onto his shoulders and get a killing grip, but this time she was hampered by her wounded leg. "Carl!" Firepaw arched his spine, but Yellowfang managed to dig in her claws and hung on tight. The bigger cat's weight forced him to the ground. Firepaw tasted earth on his tongue and spat out a mouthful of grit. Pah! He twisted nimbly to avoid Yellowfang's thrashing back legs and the thorn-sharp claws that were trying to rake at his soft underbelly. Over and over they rolled, biting and snapping. Moments later, they broke apart. Firepaw was gasping for breath now, but he sensed that Yellowfang was weakening. The she-cat was badly wounded, and her back legs could barely support her scrawny body. "Had enough yet?" Firepaw growled. If the intruder gave way, he'd let her go with just a warning bite to remember him by. "Never," Yellowfang hissed back bravely, but her injured leg gave way, and she slumped to the ground. She tried to get up and failed. Her eyes were dull as she hissed up at Firepaw. "If I weren't so hungry and tired, I'd have shredded you into mouse dust." The she-cat's mouth twisted in pain and defiance. "Finish me off. I won't stop you." Firepaw hesitated. He'd never killed another cat before. Perhaps in the heat of battle he would, but a mercy killing in cold blood? This was something very different. "What are you waiting for?" Yellowfang taunted. "You're dithering like a kitty pet." Firepaw smarted at the she-cat's words. Could she smell the scent of two legs on him, even now, after all this time? "I'm an apprentice warrior of ThunderClan," he snapped. Yellowfang narrowed her eyes. She'd seen Firepaw flinch at her words, and she knew she'd hit a nerve. "Ha!" she snorted. "Don't tell me ThunderClan is so desperate they have to recruit kitty pets now." "ThunderClan is not desperate," hissed Firepaw. "Prove it, then. Act like a warrior and finish me off. You'll be doing me a favor." Firepaw stared at her. He would not be goaded into killing this miserable creature. He felt his muscles relax as curiosity pricked him. How had a clan cat gotten in such a state? ThunderClan elders were looked after better than kits. "You seem in an awful hurry to die," he meowed. "Yeah, well, that's my business, mouse fodder," Yellowfang snapped. "What's your problem, kitty? Are you trying to talk me to death?" Her words were brave, but Firepaw could smell the hunger and sickness that were coming off the other cat in waves. She was going to die anyway if she didn't eat soon, and since she could hardly hunt for herself, perhaps he should kill her now. The two cats looked at each other, uncertainty in both their gazes. "Wait here," Firepaw ordered at last. Yellowfang seemed to deflate. Her hackles smoothed out, and her tail lost its gorsebush stiffness. "Are you kidding, kitty? I'm going nowhere." She grunted, limping painfully toward a patch of soft heather. She flopped down and began licking her leg wound. Firepaw glanced briefly over his shoulder at her and hissed quietly in exasperation before heading for the trees. As he padded silently through the ferns, sun-warmed odors filled his nose, and he caught the sour reek of a long-dead rat. He heard the scratching of insects beneath bark, the rustle of furry things scurrying over leaves. His first thought had been to go and dig up the thrush he had killed earlier, but that would take too long. Maybe he should go and scoop up the rat carcass. Easy meat, but a starving cat needed fresh kill. Only when times were very hard would a warrior eat crow food. Just then he paused, scenting a young rabbit ahead. A few more steps and he saw it. Flattening himself down, he stalked the creature. He was barely a mouse length away before it detected him. By then, it was too late. The white bobtail darting away sent the thrill of the chase surging through Firepaw's veins. A rush of speed, a flash of claws, and he had it. He held the wriggling body fast and finished it off quickly. Yellow Fang looked up tiredly as Firepaw dropped the rabbit on the ground beside her. Her grizzled jaw dropped. "Well, hello again, kitty. I thought you'd gone to fetch your little warrior friends." "Yeah? Well, I might still do that. And don't call me kitty," Firepaw growled, shoving the rabbit nearer with his nose. He felt embarrassed by his kindness. "Look, if you don't want this—" "Ah, no," Yellow Fang meowed hastily. "I do want it." Firepaw watched the she-cat rip open the prey and start to swallow it down. His own hunger rose up and his mouth filled with water. He knew he shouldn't even be thinking about eating. He still had to take back enough prey for the clan, but the fresh kill smelled delicious. Mmm. A few minutes later, Yellow Fang gave a huge sigh and flopped onto her side. "First fresh kill I've had for days." She licked her muzzle clean and settled down to give herself a thorough wash. As if one wash is going to make much difference, Firepaw thought, his nose twitching. She was the arch-cat of stench. He eyed the tattered remnants of the prey. There wasn't much left to line a growing cat's belly, but his fight with Yellow Fang had sharpened his appetite even more. He gave in to his hunger and gulped down the scraps. It was delicious. He licked his lips, savoring every last taste, tingling from head to paw. Yellow Fang watched him closely, showing her stained teeth. "Better than the muck Two Legs feeds some of our brothers, isn't it?" she mewed slyly. Knowing she had found his sore spot, she was trying to antagonize him. Firepaw ignored her and began to wash. "It's poison," Yellow Fang went on. "Rat droppings. Only a spineless bag of fur would accept such disgusting frog spawn." She broke off and tensed. "Shh. Warrior's coming." Firepaw was also aware of cats approaching. He could hear their soft paw fall on the leaf litter and the sound of fur swishing through branches. He smelled the wind brushing against their coats. Familiar smells. These were ThunderClan warriors, confident enough in their own territory not to care about the noise they made. Firepaw licked his lips guiltily, hoping to wash away any traces of the scraps he'd just swallowed. Then he looked at Yellow Fang and the fresh pile of rabbit bones that lay beside her. "The clan must be fed first." Lionheart's voice rang through his head once more. But surely he would understand why Firepaw had fed this wretched creature. His mind reeled, suddenly fearful of what would happen to him. His first apprentice task, and he had ended up breaking the warrior code. Chapter 8. Yellow Fang growled in defiance at the approaching paw steps, but Firepaw could sense her panic. The she-cat struggled to her feet. "So long. Thanks for the meal." She tried to limp away on 3 legs and then winced in pain. "This leg's stiffened up while I've been resting." Now it was too late for her to run. Silent shadows slipped out of the trees, and in a heartbeat the ThunderClan patrol had encircled Firepaw and Yellow Fang. Firepaw recognized them. Tigerclaw, Darkstripe, Willowpelt, and Bluestar. All of them lean and hard-muscled. Firepaw smelled Yellow Fang's fear at the sight of them. Graypaw followed close behind. He bounded out of the bushes and stood beside the warrior patrol. Firepaw mewed a hasty greeting to his clan, but only Graypaw returned it. "Hi, Firepaw," he called out. "Silence!" Tigerclaw growled. Firepaw glanced at Yellow Fang and groaned inwardly. He could still smell the fear scent on her, but instead of cowering in submission, the scruffy creature was glaring in defiance. "Firepaw?" Bluestar's question was cool and measured. "What have we here?" "An enemy warrior, and recently fed by the smell of you both." Her eyes burned into him, and Firepaw dropped his head. "She was weak and hungry," he began. "And what about you? Was your hunger so bad that you had to feed yourself before you had gathered prey for your clan?" Bluestar went on. "I assume that you have a very good reason for breaking the warrior code." Firepaw was not fooled by the leader's soft tone. Bluestar was furious, and rightly so. He crouched lower to the ground. Before he could speak, there was a loud hiss from Tiger Claw. "Once a kitty pet, always a kitty pet!" Bluestar ignored Tiger Claw and looked instead at Yellowfang. Suddenly she looked surprised. "Well, well, Firepaw. It seems you have captured us a Shadow Clan cat, and one I know well. You are Shadow Clan's medicine cat, aren't you?" she meowed to Yellowfang. "What are you doing so far into ThunderClan territory?" "I was the Shadow Clan medicine cat. Now I choose to travel alone," hissed Yellowfang. Firepaw listened, astonished. Had he heard right? Yellowfang was a Shadow Clan warrior? Her filthy condition must have masked her territorial scent. He might have enjoyed tackling her more if he'd known. "Yellowfang," Tiger Claw meowed mockingly. "It looks like you have fallen on hard times if you can be beaten by an apprentice." Now Darkstripe spoke. "This old cat is no use to us. Let's kill her now. As for this kitty pet, he has broken the warrior code by feeding an enemy warrior. He should be punished." "Keep your claws in, Darkstripe," Bluestar purred calmly. "All the clans speak of Yellowfang's bravery and wisdom. It may help us to hear what she has to say. Come, we'll take her back to camp. Then we'll decide what to do with her and with Firepaw." "Can you walk?" she asked Yellowfang. "Or do you need help?" "I've still got 3 good legs," the grizzled she-cat snapped back, limping forward. Firepaw saw that Yellowfang's eyes were glazed with pain, but she seemed determined not to show any weakness. He noticed a look of respect flicker across Bluestar's face before the ThunderClan leader turned and slowly led the way through the trees. The other warriors took up positions on either side of Yellowfang, and the patrol moved off, carefully keeping pace with their lame prisoner. Firepaw and Greypaw fell in step together at the back of the group. "Have you heard of Yellowfang?" Firepaw hissed to Greypaw. "A bit. Apparently she was a warrior before she became a medicine cat, which is unusual. I can't imagine her as a loner, though. She has lived her whole life in Shadow Clan." "What's a loner?" Greypaw glanced at him. "A loner is a cat that isn't part of a clan or cared for by Two Legs. Tiger Claw says they are untrustworthy and selfish. They often live around two-leg dwellings, but belong to no one and catch their own food." "I might end up a loner once Bluestar is finished with me," Firepaw mewed. "Bluestar is very fair," Greypaw reassured him. "She won't throw you out. She certainly seems pleased to have such an important Shadow Clan cat as a prisoner. I'm sure she's not going to make a fuss about your feeding the poor old mange bag." "But they keep moaning about prey being scarce. Oh, why did I eat that rabbit?" Firepaw felt shame burn through his fur. "Well, yeah," Greypaw nudged his friend. "That was mouse-brained. You really broke the warrior code there. But no cat is perfect." Firepaw didn't answer, but trekked onward with a heavy heart. This was not the way he had hoped his first solo task would end. As the patrol passed the sentries who guarded the camp entrance, the rest of ThunderClan came running to welcome their warriors home. Queens, kits, and elders crowded on either side. They peered curiously at Yellowfang as she was led into the camp. Some of the elders recognized the old she-cat. Word spread quickly through the clan that this was Shadow Clan's medicine cat, and a steady jeering hum rose up around them. Yellow Fang seemed deaf to the taunts. Firepaw couldn't help admiring the way she limped with dignity through the corridor of stares and insults. He knew she was in a great deal of pain, and hungry in spite of the rabbit he had caught for her. When the patrol reached the high rock, Blue Star nodded toward the dusty ground in front of it. Yellow Fang followed the ThunderClan leader's silent command, sinking gratefully onto the earth. Still ignoring the hostile stares around her, she began licking her wounded leg. Firepaw noticed Spotted Leaf emerge from her corner. She must have scented the presence of an injured cat in the camp. He watched the crowd part to let the young tortoiseshell through. Yellow Fang glared at Spotted Leaf and hissed, "I know how to take care of my own wounds. I don't need your help." Spotted Leaf said nothing, but nodded respectfully and stepped back. Some of the cats had been out hunting, and fresh kill was brought for the returning warriors to eat. They each took some food and carried it away to the nettle patch to eat it. Then the other clan cats crowded forward to take their own share. Firepaw paced hungrily around the clearing and watched as the cats crouched in their usual groups, chewing and gulping. He longed for a morsel, but didn't dare to take anything from the pile. He had broken the warrior code. He guessed that this meant he was forbidden his share in the fresh kill. He paused beside the high rock where Blue Star was sharing words with Tiger Claw. Uncertain, Firepaw looked to his leader for a signal that he was allowed to eat, but the gray cat and her senior warrior were busy murmuring at one another in low tones. Firepaw wondered if they were talking about him. Desperate to know his fate, he strained his ears to hear what they were saying. Tiger Claw's yowl sounded impatiently. "It's just too dangerous to bring an enemy warrior into the heart of ThunderClan. Now that she knows the camp, even the youngest Shadow Clan kit will hear of it. We will have to move." "Calm down, Tiger Claw," Blue Star purred. "Why should we move? Yellow Fang says that she is traveling alone now. There's no reason for Shadow Clan to hear of it."
"Do you really believe that? What on earth was that foolish kitty pet thinking of?" Tiger Claw spat.
"But think for a moment, Tiger Claw," mewed Blue Star. "Why would the Shadow Clan medicine cat choose to leave her clan? You seem to be afraid that Yellow Fang will share our clan secrets with Shadow Clan. But have you thought about how many Shadow Clan secrets she might share with us?" Firepaw could see by the way Tiger Claw's fur began to flatten that Blue Star's words made sense. The warrior nodded briefly, and then stalked off to take his share of the fresh kill. Blue Star remained where she was. She looked out across the clearing, where some of the younger kits were fighting and tumbling playfully in the dust. Then she stood up and began to walk toward Firepaw. His heart lurched. What was she going to say to him? But Blue Star walked straight past him. She did not even glance at him. Her eyes were clouded with unknown distant thoughts. "Frost Fur," she called out as she approached the nursery. A pure white cat with dark blue eyes slipped out of the brambles. Inside, the noise of mewling grew louder. "Hush, kits," purred the white cat reassuringly. "I won't be long." Then she turned to her leader. "Yes, Blue Star? What is it?" "One of our apprentices has seen a fox in the area. Warn the other queens to guard the nursery carefully. And make sure all kits less than 6 moons stay inside the camp until our warriors have driven it away." Frostfur nodded. "I will pass on the warning, Blue Star. Thank you." Then she turned and squeezed back into the nursery to quiet the crying kits. At last Blue Star strode over to the pile of fresh kill and took her share. A plump wood pigeon had been left for her there. Firepaw looked on longingly as she carried it away to eat with the senior warriors. Finally, his hunger drove him forward. Graypaw was with Ravenpaw, wolfing down a small finch beside the tree stump. He saw Firepaw approach the pile and flicked his head encouragingly. Firepaw bent his neck, ready to take a small wood mouse in his teeth.
Not for you,
Tiger Claw growled, striding up behind him and pawing the mouse away.
You didn't bring back any prey. The elders will eat your share. Take it to them.
Firepaw looked over to Blue Star. She nodded shortly. Do as he says. Obediently, Firepaw picked up the mouse and carried it across to Small Ear. The delicious smell of it wafted up Firepaw's nose. He wanted nothing more than to crunch it up with his strong teeth. He could almost feel its life energy flooding his young body. With great self-control, he laid the prey down in front of the gray Tom and then backed away politely. He expected no thanks and was offered none. Now he was glad that he had gobbled up the remains of the rabbit he had caught for Yellow Fang. There would be nothing else for him to eat until he went out hunting again tomorrow. Firepaw wandered over to Graypaw. His friend had eaten his fill and lay with Ravenpaw outside the apprentice's den. He was stretched out on his side, rhythmically washing a foreleg. Graypaw saw Firepaw approach and paused in his licking. "Has Blue Star mentioned your punishment yet?" he asked. "Not yet," Firepaw replied gloomily. Graypaw narrowed his eyes sympathetically and said nothing. Blue Star's call sounded across the clearing. "Let all those cats old enough to catch their own prey join together for a meeting of our clan." Most of the warriors had finished eating and, like Graypaw, were busy grooming themselves. They lifted themselves gracefully to their paws and walked over to the high rock, where Blue Star waited to speak. "Come on," mewed Graypaw. He leaped up. Ravenpaw and Firepaw followed him as he scampered over and nudged his way forward into a good position. "I'm sure you have all heard about the prisoner we brought back with us today," Blue Star began. "But there is something else you need to know." She glanced down at the rattled she-cat who lay very still beside the high rock. "Can you hear me from there?" she asked. "I may be old, but I'm not deaf yet," Yellowfang spat in reply. Blue Star ignored the prisoner's hostile tone and continued. "I'm afraid I have some very grave news. Today I traveled with a patrol into Wind Clan territory. The air was filled with the scent of Shadow Clan. Almost every tree had been sprayed by Shadow Clan warriors, and we met no Wind Clan cats even though we journeyed deep into their heartland." Her words were met with silence. Firepaw saw confusion in the faces of the clan cats. "Do you mean Shadow Clan has chased them out?" called Small Ear hesitantly. "We can't be sure," Blue Star meowed. "Certainly the scent of Shadow Clan was everywhere. We found blood, too, and fur. There must have been a battle, though we found no bodies from either clan." A shocked yowl rose from the crowd in a single voice. Firepaw felt the cats around him stiffen with shock and fury. Never before had one clan driven another from its hunting grounds. "How can Wind Clan have been driven out?" One Eye croaked hoarsely. "Shadow Clan is fierce, but Wind Clan is many. They have lived in the uplands for generations. Why have they been chased out now?" She shook her head anxiously, her whiskers trembling. "I don't know the answer to any of your questions," meowed Blue Star. "It is well known that Shadow Clan has recently appointed a new leader, following the death of Ragged Star. Their new leader, Broken Star, gave no hint of any threat when we met him at the last gathering." "Perhaps Yellowfang has answers," snarled Darkstripe. "After all, she is of Shadow Clan." "I am no traitor. Nothing would make me share the secrets of Shadow Clan with a brute like you," growled Yellowfang, glaring aggressively at Darkstripe. The ThunderClan warrior moved forward, ears flat, eyes closed to slits, ready for a fight. "Stop!" yowled Blue Star. Darkstripe immediately halted in his tracks, even though Yellowfang goaded him on with blazing eyes and a ferocious hiss.
"That's enough!"
Bluestar growled.
"This situation is too serious for us to be fighting among ourselves. ThunderClan must prepare itself. From this moonrise onward, warriors will travel in larger groups. Other clan members will remain close to the camp. Patrols will travel the boundary edges more frequently, and all the kits must stay in the nursery."
The cats below her nodded in agreement. Bluestar continued.
"Our need for warriors is our greatest obstacle. We shall get around this by speeding up the training of our apprentices. They need to be ready even sooner to fight for our clan."
Firepaw saw Dustpaw and Sandpaw exchange a thrilled glance. Graypaw was gazing up at Bluestar, his eyes wide with excitement. Ravenpaw just shuffled his paws anxiously. The black apprentice's wide eyes showed worry rather than excitement. Bluestar went on.
"One young cat has been sharing mentors with Graypaw and Ravenpaw. By teaching him, I shall speed up the training of all 3 apprentices."
She paused and looked down at her clan.
"I shall take on Firepaw as my own apprentice."
Firepaw opened his eyes wide in amazement. Bluestar was to be his mentor? Beside him, Graypaw gasped, unable to hide his surprise.
"What an honor! It's been moons since Bluestar had an apprentice. Usually she trains only the kits of deputies."
Then a familiar voice rose from the front of the crowd. It was Tigerclaw.
"So Firepaw is to be rewarded, not punished, for feeding an enemy warrior when he should have been feeding his own clan?" "Firepaw is my apprentice now. I will deal with him,"
answered Bluestar. She stared into Tigerclaw's fierce eyes for a moment before lifting her head to address the whole clan once more.
"Yellowfang will be allowed to stay here until she has recovered her strength. We are warriors, not savages. She is to be treated with respect and courtesy."
"But the clan cannot support Yellowfang," Darkstripe protested. "We have too many mouths to feed already."
"Yeah," Graypaw whispered into Firepaw's ear,
"and some of them are bigger than others."
"I don't need anyone to care for me," spat Yellowfang. "And I'll split open anyone who tries."
"Friendly, isn't she?" Graypaw murmured. Firepaw flicked the tip of his tail in silent agreement. There were muffled meows from the other warriors as they grudgingly recognized the enemy warrior's fighting spirit. Bluestar ignored the murmuring.
"We shall kill 2 prey with 1 blow, as it were. Firepaw, as punishment for breaking the warrior code, it will be your responsibility to care for Yellowfang. You will hunt for her and tend her wounds. You will fetch fresh bedding and clear away her dirt."
"Yes, Bluestar,"
mewed Firepaw, his head bowed in submission.
"Clear away her dirt,"
he thought to himself.
"Ugh!"
Mocking yowls came from Dustpaw and Sandpaw.
"Good idea,"
hissed Dustpaw.
"Firepaw had better be good at cracking fleas."
"And hunting," added Sandpaw. "That sack of bones is going to need feeding up."
"Enough,"
Bluestar interrupted them.
"I hope Firepaw will find no shame in caring for Yellowfang. She is a healer, and she is his elder. For those reasons alone, he should respect her."
She shot a sharp glance at Sandpaw and Dustpaw.
"And there is no humiliation in caring for another cat when she is unable to take care of herself. The meeting is over. I would like to speak to my senior warriors alone now."
With that, she jumped down from the high rock and marched toward her den. Lionheart followed her. The other clan cats began to move away from the high rock. 1 or 2 congratulated Firepaw on being chosen as Bluestar's apprentice. Others mockingly wished him luck looking after Yellowfang. Firepaw felt so dazed by Bluestar's announcement that he just nodded blankly. Longtail padded up to him. The V-shaped nick that Firepaw had cut into the tip of his ear still showed. The young warrior drew back his whiskers into an ugly snarl. "Well, I hope you'll think twice about bringing strays back into the camp next time," he sneered. "Like I said, outsiders always bring trouble." Chapter 9.
"I'd go and see Yellowfang if I were you,"
whispered Greypaw as Longtail strode away.
"She doesn't look very happy."
Firepaw glanced over at the old she-cat. She was still lying beside the high rock. Greypaw was right. She was glaring at him.
"Well, here goes," he mewed. "Wish me luck."
"You'll need the whole of StarClan on your side for this one," answered Greypaw. "Call out if you need a hand. If she looks like she's going to get you, I'll sneak up behind her and whack her on the head with a stiff rabbit."
Firepaw purred with amusement and trotted off toward Yellowfang. His cheerfulness quickly evaporated as he neared the injured queen. The old cat was clearly in a terrible mood. She hissed a warning and showed her teeth.
"Stop right there, kitty pet."
Firepaw sighed. It seemed he was in for a fight. He was still hungry and beginning to feel tired. He longed to curl up in his nest for an afternoon nap. The last thing he wanted was to argue with this pitiful clump of fur and teeth.
"You can call me what you like," he mewed wearily. "I'm just following Blue Star's orders." "You are a kitty pet, though, aren't you?"
Yellowfang wheezed.
"She's tired, too," Firepaw thought.
There was less fire in her voice, although her spite was as strong as ever.
"I used to live with 2 legs when I was a kitten,"
Firepaw replied calmly.
"Your mother a kitty pet? Your father a kitty pet?"
"Yes, they were." Firepaw looked down at the ground, feeling resentment burn inside him. It was bad enough that members of his own clan still viewed him as an outsider. He certainly didn't have to answer to this foul-tempered prisoner. Yellowfang seemed to take his silence as an invitation to go on.
"Kitty pet blood is not the same as warrior blood. Why don't you run home to your 2 legs now instead of looking after me? It's humiliating being fussed over by a low-born cat like you."
Firepaw's patience ran out. He snarled,
"You'd still feel humiliated if I were warrior-born. You'd feel ashamed whether I was a precious she-cat from your own clan or a wretched 2-leg that had picked you off the ground."
He lashed his tail from side to side.
"It's the fact that you need to rely on any cat that you find so humiliating."
Yellowfang stared at him, her orange eyes very wide. Firepaw carried on fiercely.
"You're just going to have to get used to being cared for until you are well enough to look after yourself, you spiteful old bone bag."
He stopped as Yellowfang began to make a low, harsh wheezing sound. Alarmed, Firepaw took a step toward her. The she-cat was trembling all over, and her eyes had narrowed into tiny slits. Was she having some kind of a fit?
"Look, I didn't mean—"
he began, before he suddenly realized that she was laughing. She mewed, a purr rumbling up from deep inside her chest. Firepaw didn't know what to do.
"You have spirit, kitty pet,"
Yellowfang croaked, stopping at last.
"Now I'm tired and my leg hurts. I need sleep and something to put on this wound. Go and find that pretty little medicine cat of yours and ask her for some herbs. I think you'll find a goldenrod poultice would help. And while you're at it, I wouldn't mind a few poppy seeds to chew on. The pain is killing me."
Stunned by her change of mood, Firepaw turned quickly and sprinted toward Spotted Leaf's den. He had never been in this part of the camp before. With his ears pricked, he padded through a cool green tunnel of ferns that led into a small grassy clearing. A tall rock stood at one side, split down the middle by a crack wide enough for a cat to make its den inside. Out of this opening trotted Spotted Leaf. As usual, she looked bright-eyed and friendly, her dappled coat gleaming with 100 shades of amber and brown. Firepaw shyly mewed a greeting and reeled off Yellowfang's list of herbs and seeds.
"I've got most of those in my den," replied Spotted Leaf. "I'll fetch some marigold leaves, too. If she dresses her wound with that, it'll keep off any infection. Wait here."
"Thanks," Firepaw mewed, as the medicine cat disappeared back into her den. He strained his eyes, trying to catch a glimpse of her inside, but the den was too dark to see anything. He could only hear the sound of rustling and smell the heady scents of unfamiliar herbs. Spotted Leaf emerged from the gloom and dropped a bundle folded in leaves by Firepaw's feet.
"Tell Yellowfang to go easy on the poppy seeds. I don't want her to deaden the pain entirely. A little pain can be useful, as it will help me judge how well she is healing."
Firepaw nodded and picked up the herbs with his teeth.
"Thanks, Spotted Leaf."
He mewed through the mouthful of leaves, then headed back through the fern tunnel into the main clearing. Tiger Claw was sitting outside the warrior's den, watching him closely. As Firepaw trotted over to Yellowfang, carrying the herbs, he could feel the amber-eyed stare burning the fur on the back of his neck. He turned his head and looked at Tiger Claw curiously. The warrior narrowed his eyes and looked away. Firepaw dropped the bundle beside Yellowfang.
"Good," she meowed. "Now, before you leave me in peace, find me something to eat. I'm starving."
The sun had risen 3 times since Yellowfang had entered the camp. Firepaw woke early and nudged Graypaw, who was still asleep beside him, his nose tucked under his thick tail.
"Wake up," Firepaw mewed, "or you'll be late for training."
Graypaw lifted his head sleepily and growled in reluctant agreement. Firepaw prodded Ravenpaw. The black cat opened his eyes immediately and leaped to his feet. "What is it?" he mewed, looking around wildly.
"Calm down, Ravenpaw. It's time for training soon,"
Firepaw soothed. Dustpaw and Sandpaw began to stir too, in their mossy nests on the far side of the den. Firepaw stood up and pushed his way out of the ferns. The morning was warm. Firepaw could see a deep blue sky through the leaves and branches that overhung the camp. Today, however, a heavy dew glistened on the fern fronds and sparkled on the grass. Firepaw sniffed the air. Greenleaf was drawing to a close, and soon it would start to feel colder. He lay down and rolled in the earth beside the tree stump, stretching his legs and tipping his head back to rub it on the cool ground. Then he flipped over onto his side and looked across the clearing to see if Yellowfang was awake yet. She had been given a resting place at the other end of the fallen tree where the elders gathered to eat. Her nest lay tucked against its mossy trunk, out of hearing of the elders, but in full view of the warrior's den across the clearing. Firepaw could just see a mound of pale gray fur, rising and falling in time to a gentle rumble of sleep. Graypaw trotted out of the den behind him, followed by Sandpaw and Dustpaw. Ravenpaw appeared last, with a nervous glance around the clearing before he emerged fully into the open.
"Another day looking after that mangy old flea bag, eh, Firepaw?" mewed Dustpaw. "I bet you wish you were out training with us."
Firepaw sat up and shook the dust from his fur. He wasn't going to let himself get annoyed by Dustpaw's taunts.
"Don't worry, Firepaw," murmured Graypaw. "Bluestar will have you back in training before long."
"Perhaps she thinks a kitty pet is better off staying in camp, tending to the sick,"
mewed Sandpaw rudely, tossing her sleek ginger head and throwing him a scornful look. Firepaw decided to ignore her barbed comments.
"What is Whitestorm teaching you today, Sandpaw?" he mewed.
"We're doing battle training today. He's going to teach me how a real warrior fights,"
Sandpaw replied proudly.
"Lionheart's taking me to the great sycamore," mewed Graypaw, "to practice my climbing. I'd best go. He'll be waiting." "I'll come with you to the top of the ravine," mewed Firepaw. "I have to catch breakfast for Yellowfang. Coming, Ravenpaw? Tiger Claw must have something planned for you."
Ravenpaw sighed and nodded, then followed Greypaw and Firepaw as they trotted out of the camp. Even though his injury was completely healed, he still seemed to have little enthusiasm for warrior training.
Yeah, because
Here,
I got clown.
mewed Firepaw. He dropped a large mouse and a chaffinch onto the ground beside Yellowfang. "About time," she growled. The she-cat had still been sleeping when Firepaw had entered the camp after his hunting trip, but the smell of fresh kill must have woken her, for now she had pulled herself into a sitting position. She dropped her head and hungrily gulped down Firepaw's offerings. She had developed a massive appetite as her strength returned. Her wound was healing well, but her temper remained as fierce and unpredictable as ever. She finished her meal and complained, "The base of my tail itches like fury, but I can't reach it. Give it a wash, will you?" With an inward shudder, Firepaw crouched down and set to work. As he cracked the plump fleas between his teeth, he noticed a gang of small kits tumbling in the dusty earth nearby. They were mauling each other and play-fighting, sometimes quite viciously. Yellowfang, who had closed her eyes as Firepaw groomed her, half opened one eye to observe the kits as they played. To his surprise, Firepaw felt her spine stiffen beneath his teeth. He listened for a moment to the tiny yelps and squeaks of the kits.
"Feel my teeth, Broken Star,"
mewed one small tabby. He leaped onto the back of a little gray and white kit, who was pretending to be the Shadow Clan leader. The two kits bundled toward the high rock. Suddenly, the gray and white kit gave a mighty heave and flung the tabby from his back. With a startled squeak, the little tabby cannoned into Yellowfang's side. Instantly, the old she-cat leaped to her feet, fur on end, spitting violently.
"Stay away from me, you scrap of fur!"
she hissed. The tabby kit took one look at the furious cat, turned tail, and ran. He hid himself behind a tabby queen, who was staring furiously across the clearing at Yellowfang. The gray and white kit froze where he stood. Then, paw by paw, he cautiously backed away toward the safety of the nursery. Yellowfang's reaction had shocked Firepaw. He thought he'd seen her at her most vicious when they fought after their first meeting, but her eyes burned with a new rage now.
"I think the kits are finding it hard being confined to camp,"
he mewed cautiously.
"They're getting restless." "I don't care how restless they are," growled Yellowfang. "Just keep them away from me."
"Don't you like kits?" Firepaw asked, curious in spite of himself.
"Did you never have kits of your own?" "Don't you know medicine cats don't have kits?"
hissed Yellowfang furiously.
"But I heard you were a warrior before that," Firepaw ventured. "I have no kits," Yellowfang spat. She snatched her tail away from him and sat up.
"Anyway," her voice suddenly lowered and she sounded almost wistful, "accidents seem to happen to kits when I'm around them." Her orange eyes clouded with emotion. She laid her chin flat on her forepaws and stared ahead. Firepaw watched her shoulders sink as she released a long, silent sigh. Firepaw looked at her curiously. What could she mean? Was the old she-cat being serious? It was hard to tell. Yellowfang seemed to swing from mood to mood so quickly. He shrugged to himself and went on with the grooming.
"There are a couple of ticks I couldn't pull out,"
he told her when he had finished.
"I should hope you didn't even try, you idiot," snapped Yellowfang. "I don't want any tick heads embedded in my rear, thank you very much. Ask Spotted Leaf for a little mouse bile to rub on them. A splash of that in their breathing holes, and they'll soon loosen their grip." "I'll get some now," Firepaw offered. He was glad of a chance to get away from the grumpy cat for a while, and it was certainly no hardship to go and see Spotted Leaf again. He walked toward the fern tunnel. Cats crossed the clearing around him, carrying sticks and twigs in their teeth. While he had been grooming Yellowfang, the camp had grown active. It had been like this every day since Blue Star had announced Wind Clan's disappearance. The queens were weaving twigs and leaves into a dense green wall,
around the sides of the nursery, making sure that the narrow entrance was the only way in and out of the bramble patch. Other cats were working at the edges of the camp, filling in any spaces in the thick undergrowth. Even the elders were busy scraping out a hole in the ground. Warriors filed steadily past, piling pieces of fresh kill beside them, ready to be stored inside the newly dug hole. There was an air of quiet concentration, a determination to make the clan as secure and well-supplied as possible. If Shadow Clan made a move on their territory, Thunder Clan would shelter inside the camp. They would not let themselves be driven from their hunting grounds as easily as Wind Clan had been. Darkstripe, Longtail, Willowpelt, and Dustpaw were waiting silently at the camp entrance. Their eyes were fixed on the opening to the gorse tunnel. A patrol was just returning, dusty and paw-sore. As soon as the warriors entered the camp, Darkstripe and his companions approached and exchanged words with them. Then they slipped quickly out of the camp. ThunderClan's borders were not being left unguarded for a moment. Firepaw headed down the fern tunnel that led to Spotted Leaf's den. As he entered the clearing, he could see Spotted Leaf was preparing some sweet-smelling herbs.
"Can I have some mouse bile for Yellowfang's ticks?"
Firepaw mewed.
"In a moment,"
replied Spotted Leaf, pawing 2 piles of herbs together and mixing the fragrant heap with one delicately extended claw.
"Busy?"
Firepaw asked, settling down on a warm patch of earth.
"I want to be prepared for any casualties,"
Spotted Leaf murmured, glancing up at him with her clear amber eyes. Firepaw met her gaze for a moment, then looked away, an uncomfortable feeling prickling his fur. Spotted Leaf turned her attention back to the herbs. Firepaw waited, happy to sit quietly and watch her at work.
"Right,"
she mewed at last.
"What was it you wanted? Mouse bile?"
"Yes, please." Firepaw stood up and stretched each back leg in turn. The sun had warmed his fur and made him feel sleepy. Spotted Leaf bounded into her den and brought something out. She held it gingerly in her mouth. It was a small wad of moss dangling on the end of a thin strip of bark. She passed it to Firepaw. He tasted her warm, sweet breath as he took the bark strip between his teeth.
"The moss is soaked in bile,"
Spotted Leaf explained.
"Don't get any in your mouth, or you'll have a foul taste for days. Press it onto the ticks, and then wash your paws in a stream, not with your tongue."
Firepaw nodded and trotted back to Yellowfang, feeling suddenly cheerful and tingling with energy.
"Hold still,"
he mewed to the old she-cat. Carefully he used his forepaws to press the moss onto each tick.
"You may as well clear away my dirt now your paws are already foul,"
she meowed when he had finished.
"I'm going to take a nap."
She yawned, revealing her blackened and broken teeth. The warmth of the day was making her sleepy, too.
"Then you can go and do whatever it is you apprentices do,"
she murmured. When Firepaw had cleared away Yellowfang's dirt, he left her dozing and made his way to the gorse tunnel. He was keen to get to the stream and rinse his paws.
"Firepaw!"
a voice called from the side of the clearing. Firepaw turned. It was Halftail.
"Where are you off to?"
meowed the old cat curiously.
"You ought to be helping with the preparations."
"I've just been putting mouse bile on Yellowfang's ticks,"
replied Firepaw. Amusement flickered through Halftail's whiskers.
"So now you're off to the nearest stream. Well, don't come back without fresh kill. We need as much as we can find."
"Yes, Halftail,"
Firepaw replied. He made his way out of the camp and up the side of the ravine. He trotted down to the stream where he and Graypaw had hunted on the day he had found Yellowfang. Without hesitating, he jumped down into the cold, clear water. It came up to his haunches and wet his belly fur. The shock made him gasp, and he shivered. A rustle in the bushes above him made him look up, although the familiar scent that reached his nose told him there was nothing to be alarmed about.
"What are you doing in there?"
Graypaw and Ravenpaw were standing looking at him as if he were mad.
"Mouse bile,"
Firepaw grimaced.
Don't ask. Where are Lionheart and Tigerclaw? They've gone to join the next patrol, answered Graypaw. They ordered us to spend the rest of the afternoon hunting. Halftail told me the same thing, Firepaw mewed, flinching as a chilly current of water rushed around his paws. Everyone's busy back at camp. You'd think we were about to be attacked at any moment. He climbed up onto the bank, dripping.
Who says we won't be? Mewed Ravenpaw, his eyes flickering from side to side as if he expected an enemy patrol to leap out of the bushes at any time. Firepaw looked at the heap of fresh kill that was piled beside the two apprentices.
Looks like you've done all right today, he mewed.
Yeah, mewed Graypaw proudly.
And we've still got the rest of the afternoon to hunt. Do you want to join us? You bet,
Firepaw purred. He gave himself a final shake, then bounded into the undergrowth after his friends. Firepaw could tell that the cats back at camp were impressed with the amount of prey the three apprentices had managed to catch during their afternoon hunt. They were welcomed back with high tails and friendly nuzzles. It took them 4 journeys to carry their bumper catch to the storage hole the elders had dug. Lionheart and Tigerclaw had just returned with their patrol as Firepaw, Graypaw, and Ravenpaw carried their last load into the camp.
"Well done, you 3, meowed Lionheart. "I hear you've been busy. The store is almost full. You might as well add that last lot to the pile of fresh kill for tonight, and take some of it back to your den with you. You deserve a feast."
The 3 apprentices flicked their tails with delight.
"I hope you've not been neglecting Yellowfang with all this hunting, Firepaw," Tigerclaw growled warningly.
Firepaw shook his head impatiently, eager to get away. He was starving. He had obeyed the warrior code this time, and not eaten a morsel while he was hunting for the clan. Nor had Graypaw or Ravenpaw. They trotted away and dropped the last of their catch on the fresh kill that already lay at the center of the clearing. Then each of them took a piece and carried it back to their tree stump. The den was empty.
"Where are Dustpaw and Sandpaw?" asked Ravenpaw. "They must still be out on patrol," Firepaw guessed.
"Good," meowed Graypaw. "Peace and quiet." They ate their fill and lay back to wash. The cool evening air was welcome after the heat of the day.
"Hey, guess what?" mewed Graypaw suddenly. "Ravenpaw managed to squeeze a compliment out of old Tigerclaw this morning." "Really?" Firepaw gasped. "What on earth did you do to please Tigerclaw? Fly?"
"Well," Ravenpaw began shyly, looking at his paws, "I caught a crow."
"How'd you manage that?"
Firepaw mewed, impressed.
"It was an old one,"
Ravenpaw admitted modestly.
"But it was huge," added Graypaw. "Even Tigerclaw couldn't find fault with that. He's been in such a bad mood since Bluestar took you on as her apprentice."
He licked his paw thoughtfully for a moment.
"Hang on. Make that since Lionheart was made deputy."
"He's just worried about Shadow Clan and the extra patrols," mewed Ravenpaw hastily.
"You should try not to annoy him."
Their conversation was interrupted by a loud yowl from the other side of the clearing.
"Oh no," Firepaw groaned, getting to his paws. "I forgot to take Yellowfang her share." "You wait here," mewed Graypaw, leaping up. "I'll take her something." "No, I'd better go," Firepaw protested. "This is my punishment, not yours." "No one will notice," argued Graypaw. "They're all busy eating. You know me, quiet as a mouse, quick as a fish. Wait here."
Firepaw sat down again, unable to hide his relief. He watched his friend trot away from the tree stump to the pile of fresh kill. As if he were carrying out orders, Graypaw confidently picked out 2 of the juiciest-looking mice. Quickly, he began to pad across the clearing toward Yellowfang.
"Stop, Graypaw!"
A loud growl rumbled from the entrance of the warrior's den. Tigerclaw strode out and marched over to Graypaw.
"Where are you taking those mice?"
he demanded. With a sinking feeling in his stomach, Firepaw watched, helpless from the tree stump. Beside him, Ravenpaw froze mid-chew and crunched over his meal with his eyes wider than ever.
Greypaw dropped the mice and shuffled his paws uncomfortably.
Not helping young Firepaw by feeding that greedy traitor over there, are you?
Firepaw watched Greypaw study his paws for a moment. Finally, he replied, I was just feeling hungry. I was going to take them off and eat them by myself. If I let that pair get a look in, he glanced at Firepaw and Ravenpaw, they'll leave me with nothing but bones and fur.
Oh, really? Mewed Tigerclaw. Well, if you're so hungry, you might as well eat them here and now.
But, Greypaw began, looking up at the senior warrior in alarm.
Now,
growled Tigerclaw. Greypaw bent his head quickly and began to eat the mice. He demolished the first one in a couple of bites and swallowed it quickly. The second mouse took longer for him to eat. Firepaw thought he'd never manage to swallow it, and his own stomach clenched in sympathy. But eventually Greypaw gave a final difficult gulp, and the last bit of mouse disappeared.
Better now?
Asked Tigerclaw, his voice smooth with mock sympathy.
Much,
replied Greypaw, stifling a burp.
Good.
Tigerclaw stalked off again, back to his den. Greypaw slunk uncomfortably back to Firepaw and Ravenpaw.
Thanks, Greypaw,
Firepaw mewed gratefully, nudging his friend's soft fur.
That was quick thinking.
The noise of Yellowfang's yowl rose into the air once more. Firepaw sighed and got to his paws. He would make sure he took her enough to see her through the night. He wanted to turn in early. His stomach was full and his paws were tired.
Are you okay, Greypaw?
He asked as he turned to leave. Moaned Greypaw. He was hunched into a low crouch, squinting with pain.
I've eaten too much. Go and see Spotted Leaf,
Firepaw suggested.
I'm sure she'll find something to help.
I hope so,
mewed Greypaw, tottering slowly away. Firepaw wanted to watch him go, until another angry yowl from Yellowfang sent him sprinting across the clearing. Chapter 10. By the following morning, a thin drizzle soaked the treetops and dripped down into the camp. Firepaw woke up feeling damp. It had been an uncomfortable night. He stood up and shook himself vigorously, fluffing out his fur. Then he left the apprentice's den and trotted across the clearing to Yellowfang's nest. Yellowfang was just stirring. She lifted her head and squinted at Firepaw as he approached.
My bones ache this morning. Has it been raining all night? Since just after moon high,
Firepaw replied. He reached out and prodded her mossy nest cautiously.
Your bedding is soaking wet. Why don't you move nearer to the nursery? It's more sheltered there. What? And be kept awake all night by those mewling kits? I'd rather get wet,
Yellowfang growled. Firepaw watched her circle stiffly on her mossy bed.
Then at least let me fetch you some dry bedding,
he offered, keen to drop the subject of kits if it upset the old she-cat so much.
Thank you, Firepaw,
replied Yellowfang quietly, settling down again. Firepaw felt stunned. He wondered if Yellowfang was feeling all right. It was the first time she had thanked him for anything, and the first time she had not called him kitty pet.
Well, don't just stand there like a startled squirrel. Go and fetch some moss, she snapped.
Firepaw's whiskers twitched with amusement. This was more like the Yellowfang he was used to. He nodded and sprinted off. He almost crashed into Speckletail in the middle of the clearing. This was the queen who had watched Yellowfang's angry outburst at the tabby kit the day before.
Sorry, Speckletail, Firepaw mewed. Are you on your way to see Yellowfang?
What would I want with that unnatural creature? Replied Speckletail crossly. Actually, it's you I was looking for. Bluestar wants to see you.
Firepaw hurried toward the high rock and Bluestar's den. Blue Star was sitting outside, her head bobbing rhythmically as she licked the gray fur below her throat. She paused when she noticed Firepaw. "How is Yellow Fang today?" she meowed.
Her bedding is wet, so I was going to fetch her more, Firepaw replied.
"I'll ask one of the queens to see to that." Blue Star gave her chest another lick, and then eyed Firepaw carefully. "Is she fit enough to hunt for herself yet?" she asked.
I don't think so, Firepaw meowed, but she can walk well enough now.
"I see," meowed Blue Star. She looked thoughtful for a moment. "It is time for you to return to your training, Firepaw. But you'll need to work hard to make up for time you have lost."
Great! Thank you, Blue Star,
Firepaw stammered. "You will go out with Tigerclaw, Graypaw, and Ravenpaw this morning," Blue Star continued. "I've asked Tigerclaw to assess the warrior skills of all our apprentices. Don't worry about Yellowfang. I'll make sure someone sees to her while you are gone." Firepaw nodded. "Now, join your companions," Blue Star ordered. "I expect they're waiting for you."
Thank you, Blue Star,
Firepaw mewed. He turned with a flick of his tail and darted toward his den. Blue Star was right. Graypaw and Ravenpaw were both waiting for him by their favorite tree stump. Graypaw looked stiff and uncomfortable, his long fur clumped by the dampness of the air. Ravenpaw was pacing around the tree stump, lost in thought, the white tip of his tail twitching.
So you're joining us today?
Graypaw called as Firepaw approached.
Some day, huh?
He shook himself roughly to get rid of the clinging wetness.
Yes, Blue Star told me that Tigerclaw is going to assess us today. Are Sandpaw and Dustpaw coming too? White Storm and Darkstripe took them out on warrior patrol. I suppose Tigerclaw is going to look at them later, Graypaw answered. Come on, we should get going, urged Ravenpaw.
He had stopped pacing and now hovered beside them anxiously.
Fine by me, mewed Graypaw. Hopefully some exercise will warm me up a bit.
The three cats trotted through the gorse track and out of the camp. They hurried to the sandy hollow. Tigerclaw had not arrived, so they hung around in the shelter of a pine tree, their fur fluffed up against the chill.
Are you worried about the assessment?
Firepaw asked Ravenpaw, as the young cat padded backward and forward with quick, nervous paw steps.
There's no need to be. You're Tigerclaw's apprentice, after all. When he reports back to Blue Star, he's going to want to tell her how good you are.
You can never tell with Tigerclaw, mewed Ravenpaw, still pacing.
For goodness sake, sit down, Graypaw grumbled. At this rate, you'll be worn out before we begin.
By the time Tigerclaw arrived, the sky had changed. The clouds looked less like thick gray fur and more like the soft white balls of down that queens use to line the nests of their newborns. Blue skies couldn't be far behind, but the breeze that brought the softer clouds carried a fresh chill. Tigerclaw greeted them briskly and launched straight into the exercise details. "Lionheart and I have spent the last few weeks trying to teach you how to hunt decently," he mowed. "Today you'll have a chance to show me how much you have learned. Each of you will take a different route and hunt as much prey as possible, and whatever you catch will be added to the supplies in the camp." The three apprentices looked at one another, nervous and excited. Firepaw felt his heart begin to beat faster at the prospect of a challenge. "Ravenpaw, you will follow the trail beyond the great sycamore as far as the Snake Rocks. That should be easy enough for your pitiful skills. You, Graypaw," Tigerclaw continued, "will take the route along the stream as far as the Thunder Path."
Great, mewed Graypaw. Wet paws for me.
Tigerclaw's stare silenced him. "And finally you, Firepaw. What a shame your great mentor couldn't be here today to witness your performance for herself. You shall take the route through the tall pines, past the tree-cut place to the woods beyond." Firepaw nodded, frantically tracing the route in his head. "And remember," Tigerclaw finished, fixing them all with his pale-eyed stare, "I will be watching all of you." Ravenpaw was the first to sprint away toward the Snake Rocks. Tiger Claw took a different track into the woods, leaving Gray Paw and Fire Paw alone in the hollow, trying to guess who Tiger Claw would follow first.
I don't know why he thinks Snake Rocks is an easy route, mewed Gray Paw. The place is crawling with adders. Birds and mice stay away from there because there are so many snakes.
Raven Paw'll have to spend his whole time trying not to get bitten, Fire Paw agreed.
Oh, he'll be okay, mewed Gray Paw. Not even an adder would be fast enough to catch Raven Paw at the moment. He's so jumpy. I'd better get going. See you back here later on. Good luck.
Gray Paw raced off toward the stream. Fire Paw paused to sniff the air, then bounded up the side of the hollow and began to head for the tall pines. It felt strange to be going in this direction, toward the two-legged place he had been raised in. Cautiously, Fire Paw crossed the narrow path into the pine forest. He looked through the straight rows of trees, across the flat forest floor, alert for the sight and scent of prey. A movement caught his eye. It was a mouse, scrabbling through the pine needles. Remembering his first lesson, Fire Paw dropped into the stalking position, keeping his weight in his haunches, his paws light on the ground. The technique worked perfectly. The mouse didn't detect Fire Paw until his final leap. He caught it with one paw and killed it swiftly. Then he buried it so that he could pick it up on his return journey. Fire Paw traveled a little farther into the tall pines. The ground here was deeply rutted by the tracks of the huge two-legged monster that tore down the trees. Fire Paw took a deep breath, his mouth open. The monster's acid breath had not touched the air here for a while. Fire Paw followed the deep tracks, jumping across the ruts. They were half filled with rain, which made him feel thirsty. He was tempted to stop and take a few mouthfuls, but he hesitated. One lap of that muddy trench water, and he'd taste the monster's foul-smelling tracks for days. He decided to wait. Perhaps there would be a rainwater puddle beyond the tall pines. He hurried onward through the trees and crossed the two-leg path on the far boundary. He was back amid the thick undergrowth of oak woods. He moved onward until he found a puddle and lapped up a few mouthfuls of the fresh water. Fire Paw's fur began to prickle with some extra awareness. He recognized sounds and scents familiar from his old watching place on the fence post, and knew instantly where he was. These were the woods that bordered the two-leg place. He must be very close to his old home now. Ahead, Fire Paw could smell two-legs and hear their voices, loud and raucous like crows. It was a group of young two-legs playing in the woods. Fire Paw crouched and peered ahead through the ferns. The sounds were distant enough to be safe. He changed direction, skirting the noises, making sure he was not seen. Fire Paw stayed alert and watchful, but not just for two legs. Tiger Claw might be somewhere nearby. He thought he heard a twig snap in the bushes behind him. He sniffed the air, but smelled nothing new. Was he being watched now? He wondered. Out of the corner of his eye, Fire Paw sensed movement. At first he thought it was Tiger Claw's dark brown fur, but then he saw a flash of white. He stopped, crouched, and inhaled deeply. The smell was unfamiliar. It was a cat, but not a ThunderClan cat. Fire Paw felt his fur bristle with the instincts of a clan warrior. He would have to chase the intruder out of ThunderClan territory. Fire Paw watched the creature moving through the undergrowth. He could see its outline clearly as it skittered between the ferns. Fire Paw waited for it to wander nearer. He crouched lower, his tail waving back and forth in slow rhythm. As the black and white cat neared, Fire Paw rocked his haunches from side to side as he prepared to spring. One more heartbeat, then he leaped. The black and white cat jumped into the air, terrified, and raced away through the trees. Fire Paw gave chase. "It's a kitty pet," he thought, as he raced through the undergrowth, smelling its fear scent. "In my territory." He was closing in rapidly on the fleeing animal. It had slowed its headlong rush, preparing to scramble up the wide mossy trunk of a fallen tree. With the blood roaring in his ears, Fire Paw leaped onto its back in a single bound. Fire Paw could feel the cat struggling beneath him as he gripped on with all his claws. It let out a desperate and terrified yowl. Firepaw released his grip and backed away. The black and white cat cringed at the foot of the fallen tree, trembling, and looked up at him. Firepaw lifted his nose, feeling a ripple of disgust at the intruder's easy surrender. This soft, plump house cat with its round eyes and narrow face looked very different from the lean, broad-headed cats Firepaw lived with now. And yet, something about this cat seemed familiar. Firepaw stared harder. He sniffed, drawing in the other cat's scent. I don't recognize the smell, he thought, searching his memory. Then it came to him. Smudge! He meowed out loud. How do you know my name? Stammered Smudge, still crouching.
Oh my
It's me! Firepaw meowed. The house cat looked confused. We were kittens together. I lived in the garden next to you, Firepaw insisted. Rusty? Mewed Smudge in disbelief. Is that you? Did you find the wildcats again? Or are you living with new housefolk? You must be if you're still alive. I'm called Firepaw now, Firepaw meowed. He relaxed his shoulders and let his fur fall flat into a sleek orange pelt. Smudge relaxed too. His ears pricked up. Firepaw, he echoed, amused. Well, Firepaw, it looks like your new housefolk don't feed you enough. You certainly weren't this scrawny last time we met. I don't need 2 legs to feed me, Firepaw replied. I've got a whole forest of food to eat. 2 legs? Housefolk. That's what the clans call them. Smudge looked bewildered for a second. Then his expression changed to one of complete astonishment. You mean you're really living with the wildcats? Yes, Firepaw paused. You know, you smell different, unfamiliar. Unfamiliar? Smudge echoed. He sniffed. I suppose you're used to the smell of those wildcats now. Firepaw shook his head, as if to clear his mind. But we were kittens together. I should know your smell like I'd know the smell of my birth mother. Then Firepaw remembered. Smudge had passed 6 moons. No wonder he looked so soft and fat and smelled so strange. You've been to the cutter, he gasped. I mean, the vet. Smudge shrugged his plump black shoulders. So? He mewed. Firepaw was speechless. So Blue Star was right. Come on, then. What's it like living wild? Smudge demanded. Is it as good as you thought it'd be? Firepaw thought for a moment. About last night, sleeping in a damp den. He thought about mouse bile and clearing away Yellowfang's dirt, and trying to please both Lionheart and Tigerclaw at once during training. He remembered the teasing he suffered about his kitty pet blood. Then he remembered the thrill of his first catch, of charging through the forest in pursuit of a squirrel, and of warm evenings beneath the stars sharing tongues with his friends. I know who I am now, he meowed simply. Smudge tipped his head to one side and stared at Firepaw, clearly confused. I should be getting home, he mewed. Mealtime soon. Go carefully, Smudge. Firepaw leaned forward and gave his old friend an affectionate lick between the ears. Smudge nuzzled him in return. And stay alert. There may be another cat in the area who is not as fond of kitty pets. I mean, house cats, as I am. Smudge's ears flicked nervously at these words. He looked around cautiously and leaped up onto the trunk of the fallen tree. Goodbye, Rusty, he mewed. I'll tell everyone at home that you're okay. Bye, Smudge, meowed Firepaw. Enjoy your meal. He watched the white tip of Smudge's tail disappear over the edge of the tree. In the distance he could hear the rattle of dried food being shaken and a 2-leg voice calling. Firepaw turned, his tail high, and started back toward his own home, sniffing the air as he went. I'll find a finch or 2 here, he decided. Then I'll catch something else on the way back through the pines. He felt bursting with energy after meeting Smudge, and realizing just how lucky he was to live in the clan. He looked up at the branches above him and began to stalk silently across the forest floor, every sense alert. Now he just needed to impress Blue Star and Tiger Claw, and the day would be perfect. Chapter 11. Firepaw returned with the chaffinch gripped firmly between his teeth. He dropped it in front of Tiger Claw, who stood waiting in the hollow.
You're the first one back,
meowed the warrior. Yeah, but I've got loads more prey to fetch, Firepaw mewed quickly. I buried it back.
I know exactly what you did, Tiger Claw growled.
Oh no.
I've been watching you.
A swish of bushes announced Graypaw's return. He was carrying a small squirrel in his mouth, which he dropped beside Firepaw's chaffinch. Yuck, he spat. Squirrels are too furry. I'll be picking hairs out of my teeth all evening. Tiger Claw paid no attention to Graypaw's grumbling.
Ravenpaw's late, he observed. We'll give him a bit longer and then return to camp.
But what if he's been bitten by an adder? Firepaw protested.
Then it's his own fault, Tiger Claw replied coldly. There's no room for fools in ThunderClan.
They waited in silence. Graypaw and Firepaw exchanged glances, worried about Ravenpaw. Tiger Claw sat motionless, apparently lost in his own thoughts. Firepaw was the first to scent Ravenpaw's arrival. He jumped to his paws as the black cat leaped into the clearing, looking unusually pleased with himself. Dangling from his mouth was the long, diamond-patterned body of an adder. Ravenpaw, are you okay? Firepaw called. Hey, meowed Graypaw, rushing forward to admire Ravenpaw's catch. Did that bite you? I was too quick for it, Ravenpaw purred loudly. Then he caught Tiger Claw's eye and fell silent. Tiger Claw fixed all three excited apprentices with a cold stare.
Come on, he said shortly. Let's collect the rest of your prey and get back to camp.
Firepaw, Graypaw, and Ravenpaw entered the camp, strolling behind Tiger Claw. Their impressive day's catch hung from their mouths, although Ravenpaw kept tripping over his dead snake. As they emerged from the gorse into the camp, a group of young kits scrambled out of the nursery to watch them pass. Look, Firepaw heard one of them say. Apprentices! Just back from hunting! He recognized the little tabby Yellowtail had hissed at the day before. Sitting next to him was a fluffy gray kit, no more than 2 moons old. A tiny black kit and a small tortoiseshell stood beside them. Isn't that the kitty pet Firepaw? Squeaked the gray kit. Yeah, look at his orange fur, mewed the black one. They say he's a good hunter, the tortoiseshell added. He looks a bit like Lionheart. Do you suppose he's as good as him? I can't wait to start my training, mewed the tabby. I'm going to be the best warrior ThunderClan has ever seen. Firepaw lifted his chin, feeling proud at the kit's admiring comments. He followed his 2 friends into the center of the clearing. An adder! Graypaw mewed again, as the apprentices dropped their catch for the other cats to share. What should I do with it? Asked Ravenpaw, sniffing the snake's long body as it lay beside the heap. Can you eat adders? Asked Graypaw. Trust you to think of your stomach, Firepaw joked, butting Graypaw with his head. Well, I wouldn't want to eat it, murmured Ravenpaw. I mean, my mouth tastes pretty foul after carrying it back. Let's put it on the tree stump then, suggested Graypaw, so that Dustpaw and Sandpaw can see it when they get back. They each carried a piece of their fresh kill, and the adder back to their den. Graypaw carefully placed the adder on the stump, arranging the snake so that it could be seen clearly from all sides. Then they ate. When they had finished, they sat close together to groom one another and talk. I wonder who Bluestar will choose to go to the gathering, Firepaw meowed. It'll be full moon tomorrow. Sandpaw and Dustpaw have been twice already, replied Graypaw. Perhaps Bluestar will choose one of us this time, mewed Firepaw. After all,
We've been training for almost 3 moons now.
But Sandpaw and Dustpaw are still the eldest apprentices, Ravenpaw pointed out.
Firepaw nodded.
And this gathering will be an important one. It'll be the first time the clans have met since Wind Clan disappeared. No cat knows what Shadow Clan is going to say about it.
Tiger Claw's low meow interrupted them. You are right, youngster. The warrior had strolled up to them unnoticed. By the way, Firepaw, he added smoothly, Bluestar wants to see you.
Firepaw looked up, startled. Why would Bluestar want to see him?
Now, if you can spare the time, Tiger Claw meowed.
Firepaw jumped up immediately and bounded off across the clearing toward Bluestar's den. Bluestar was sitting outside, her tail flicking restlessly back and forth. When she saw Firepaw, she stood up and looked steadily down at him.
Tiger Claw has told me that he saw you talking with a cat from the two-leg place today.
She meowed quietly.
But,
Firepaw began. He said that you began by fighting with this cat, but ended up sharing tongues with it.
That's true, Firepaw admitted, feeling his fur prickle defensively. But he was an old friend. We grew up together.
He paused and swallowed.
When I was a kitty pet.
Bluestar looked at him for a long moment.
Do you miss your old life, Firepaw? She asked. Think carefully now.
No. How can Bluestar think that?
Firepaw wondered. His head was spinning.
What was Bluestar trying to make him say? Do you wish to leave the clan?
Of course not.
Firepaw was shocked by her question.
Bluestar didn't seem to hear the passion in his answer. She shook her head, looking suddenly old and tired. I won't judge you if you leave us, Firepaw. Perhaps I expected too much of you. Perhaps my judgment has been clouded by the clan's need for new warriors.
Panic swept through Firepaw at the thought of leaving the clan forever.
But my place is here. This is my home, he protested.
I need more than that, Firepaw. I need to be able to trust in your loyalty to ThunderClan, especially now that it looks like ShadowClan is planning an attack. We don't have room for anyone who isn't sure whether their heart lies in the past or the present.
Firepaw took a deep breath and chose his next words carefully.
When I saw Smudge today, that's the house cat Tiger Claw saw me talking with, I saw what life would have been like if I had stayed with the two legs. I felt happy that I had not stayed. I was proud I left.
He held Bluestar's gaze without flinching.
Meeting Smudge made me certain I made the right decision. I could never have been satisfied with the soft life of a kitty pet.
Bluestar looked closely at him for a moment, her eyes narrow. Then she nodded.
Very well, she said. I believe you.
Firepaw dipped his head respectfully and let out a silent sigh of relief.
I spoke to Yellowfang earlier,
meowed Bluestar in a lighter tone.
She thinks a lot of you. She's a wise old she-cat, you know, and I suspect she wasn't always bad-tempered. Indeed, I think that I could grow to like her.
Firepaw felt an unexpected glow of pleasure at these words. Maybe, in caring for Yellowfang, his admiration for her had grown into affection, despite the she-cat's ill temper.
Whatever the reason, he was glad Bluestar liked her too. But there is something about her that I don't trust, Bluestar went on quietly. She will stay with ThunderClan for now, but remain as a prisoner. The queens will care for her. You must concentrate on your training.
Firepaw nodded and waited to be dismissed, but Bluestar hadn't finished.
Firepaw, although you showed bad judgment today in talking to a house cat, Tiger Claw was impressed by your hunting skills. In fact, he reported that you all did well. I am pleased with your progress. You will come to the gathering, all 3 of you.
Firepaw could hardly stand still. His body tingled with excitement. The gathering?
What about Sandpaw and Dustpaw? He mewed.
They will remain behind and guard the camp.
replied Blue Star. Now you may go. She flicked her long tail to show he was dismissed, and returned to her grooming. Graypaw and Ravenpaw looked stunned to see Firepaw bounding happily toward them. They had been waiting nervously for him beside the tree stump. Firepaw sat down and looked at his friends.
"Well?" Graypaw demanded. "What did she say?" "Tiger Claw told us you'd been sharing tongues with a kitty pet this morning," burst out Ravenpaw. "Are you in trouble?"
No, although Blue Star wasn't pleased, Firepaw admitted ruefully. She thought I might want to leave ThunderClan.
"You don't, do you?"
asked Ravenpaw.
"Of course he doesn't," mewed Graypaw.
Firepaw gave his gray friend an affectionate swipe. Yeah, you'd hate that. You need me to catch mice for you. All you can catch these days are hairy old squirrels. Graypaw dodged out of the way of Firepaw's blow and reared up on his back legs to retaliate. You'll never guess what else she said, Firepaw went on. He was too excited to waste time play fighting. Graypaw immediately dropped back onto all four paws.
"What?"
he asked. We're going to the gathering. Graypaw let out a yowl of delight and bounded up onto the tree stump.
Yahoo!
One of his back paws knocked the adder flying. It hit Ravenpaw on the head and wrapped itself around his neck. Ravenpaw spat with alarm and surprise, and then turned on Graypaw. "Watch it!" he hissed crossly. He shook the adder onto the ground. Scared it might try to bite you? Firepaw teased. He crouched down, hissing, and sidled up to Ravenpaw. Ravenpaw twitched his whiskers and retorted, "Some snake you'd make." He leaped onto Firepaw and rolled him easily onto his back. Graypaw reached down from the tree stump and gave Ravenpaw's tail a tug. As Ravenpaw turned to thump Graypaw with a soft forepaw, Firepaw jumped to his feet and leaped into them both, sending Graypaw flying from the stump. All three cats tumbled into the dirt and tussled on the ground. Finally, they fell apart and settled themselves, panting beside the tree stump. "Are Thampaw and Dustpaw coming too?" puffed Graypaw. "Nope," Firepaw replied, unable to disguise the note of triumph in his voice. "They have to stay behind and guard the camp." "Oh, let me tell them," begged Graypaw. "I can't wait to see the looks on their faces." "Me neither," Firepaw agreed. "I can't believe we're going instead of them, especially after Tiger Claw saw me with Smudge today." "That was just bad luck," answered Graypaw. "We all caught a load of prey in the assessment. That must be what decided it." "I wonder what the gathering will be like," mewed Ravenpaw. "It'll be fantastic," Graypaw replied confidently. "I bet all the great warriors will be there. Clawface, Stonefur—" But Firepaw wasn't listening anymore. Instead, he found himself thinking about Tiger Claw and Smudge. Graypaw was right. It was bad luck that the great warrior had been observing him when he had met his old friend. Why couldn't he have been watching Graypaw or Ravenpaw instead? In fact, it was bad luck that Tiger Claw had sent him so near the two-leg place at all. Suddenly, a dark thought entered Firepaw's mind. Why had Tiger Claw sent him so near his old haunts?
Of course.
Had he wanted to test him?
Yeah,
Could it be the great dark warrior didn't trust his loyalty to ThunderClan?
Yeah.
Chapter 12. Firepaw peered over the brow of a bush-covered slope. Graypaw and Ravenpaw crouched beside him. Next to them, a group of ThunderClan elders, queens, and warriors waited in the undergrowth for Blue Star to give the signal. Firepaw had not been to this place since his first journey with Lionheart and Tiger Claw. The steep-sided glade looked different now. The rich greenness of the woods had been bleached away by the cold light of the full moon, and the leaves on the trees glowed silver. At the bottom stood the large oaks that marked where the corner of each clan's territory touched the other three. The air was thick with the warm scents of cats from the other clans. Firepaw could see them quite clearly in the moonlight, moving about below in the grassy clearing that lay between the four oaks. In the center of the clearing, a large, jagged rock rose from the forest floor like a broken tooth.
Look at all those cats down there, hissed Ravenpaw under his breath. There's Crooked Star, Greypaw hissed back. RiverClan's leader. Where? Firepaw mewed, nudging Greypaw impatiently. That light-colored tabby beside the great rock. Firepaw followed Greypaw's nod and saw a huge Tom, even bigger than Lionheart, sitting at the center of the clearing. His striped coat shone pale in the moonlight. Even from this distance his old face showed the signs of a harsh life, and his mouth looked twisted, as if it had once been broken and had healed badly. "Hey," mewed Greypaw, "did you see Sampaw spit when I told her I hoped she had a nice evening at home?" "You bet," Firepaw purred. Ravenpaw interrupted them with a muffled growl. "Look! There's Brokenstar, ShadowClan's leader," he hissed. Firepaw looked down at the dark brown tabby. His fur was unusually long and his face was broad and flattened. There was a stillness in the way he sat and stared around him that made Firepaw's fur prickle uncomfortably. "He looks pretty nasty," Firepaw muttered. "Yeah," agreed Greypaw. "He's certainly got a reputation among all the clans for not suffering fools gladly. And he's not been leader that long, 4
He's a detoner.
moons, ever since his father, Ragged Star, died." "What does the leader of Wind Clan look like?" Firepaw asked. "Tallstar? I've never seen him, but I know he's black and white with a very long tail," answered Greypaw. "Can you see him now?" asked Ravenpaw. Greypaw peered down, searching the crowd of cats below. "Nope." "Can you scent any Wind Clan cats?" Firepaw asked. Greypaw shook his head. "No." Lionheart's meow sounded softly beside them.
The Wind Clan cats may just be late.
"But what if they don't turn up at all?" mewed Greypaw.
Hush! We must all be patient. These are difficult times. Now keep quiet. Bluestar will give the signal to move soon.
Lionheart meowed quietly. As he spoke, Bluestar stood and, holding her tail high, flicked it from one side to the other. Firepaw's heart missed a beat as the ThunderClan cats rose as one and bounded through the bushes down toward the meeting place. He raced alongside them, feeling the wind rush in his ears and his paws tingle with anticipation. The ThunderClan cats paused instinctively on the edge of the clearing, outside the boundary of the oaks. Bluestar sniffed the air. Then she nodded, and the troop moved forward into the clearing. Firepaw felt thrilled. The other cats looked even more impressive close up, milling about the great rock. A large white warrior strode past. Firepaw and Ravenpaw looked at him in awe. "Look at his paws,"
Fireball? Never mind.
Ravenpaw murmured. Firepaw looked down and realized the huge paws of this great Tom were jet black. "It must be Blackfoot," mewed Greypaw, ShadowClan's new deputy. Blackfoot stalked over to Brokenstar and sat down beside him. The ShadowClan leader acknowledged him with a twitch of one ear, but
He has a Blackfoot. Blackfoot. Okay.
said nothing. "When does the meeting begin?" Ravenpaw asked Whitestorm.
Be patient, Ravenpaw, he answered. The sky is clear tonight.
By the way, thank you, Junior. I mean, and viewer. It's not Raven Paul. It's Paul. Pow, like PRW. It's not Paul. This is not correct.
So we have plenty of time.
Lionheart leaned over and added,
We warriors like to spend a little time boasting about our victories, while the elders swap tales about the ancient days before the two legs came here.
All 3 apprentices looked up at him and saw his whiskers twitch mischievously. Dappletail, One Eye, and Small Ear headed straight off toward a group of elderly cats who were settling themselves below one of the oak trees. Whitestorm and Lionheart strolled over to another pair of warriors, whom Firepaw did not know. He sniffed
Fireball. Why is it Fireball?
the air and recognized their scent as RiverClan.
Right.
Bluestar's voice sounded behind the 3 apprentices. "Don't waste any of your time tonight," she warned. "This is a good opportunity to meet your enemies. Listen to them,
Remember what they look like and how they behave. There's a great deal to be learned from these meetings.
And say little, warned Tiger Claw. Don't give anything away that might be used against us once the moon has waned.
Don't worry, we won't, Firepaw promised hastily, looking into Tiger Claw's eyes. The feeling that Tiger Claw didn't trust his loyalty lingered with him still. The two warriors nodded and moved on, and the apprentices were left alone. They looked at each other. "What do we do now?" Firepaw asked. "What they said," replied Ravenpaw. "Listen. And don't say too much," Greypaw added. Firepaw nodded gravely. "I'm going to see where Tiger Claw went," he mewed. "Well, I'm going to find Lionheart," mewed Greypaw. "You coming, Ravenpaw?" "No, thanks," Ravenpaw replied. "I'm going to find some of the other apprentices." "Okay, we'll meet up later," mewed Firepaw, and he trotted in the direction Tiger Claw had taken. He scented Tiger Claw easily and found him sitting at the center of a group of huge warriors behind the great rock. Tiger Claw was speaking. It was a tale Firepaw had heard many times at camp. Tiger Claw was describing his recent battle against the River Clan hunting party.
I wrestled like a Lion Clan cat. 3 warriors tried to hold me, but I threw them off. I fought them until 2 lay knocked out, and the other had run off into the forest like a kit crying for its mother.
This time, Tiger Claw didn't mention killing Oakheart in vengeance for Redtail's death. Perhaps it's so he doesn't offend the River Clan warriors, Firepaw decided. Firepaw listened politely to the end of the story, but a familiar scent was distracting him. As soon as Tiger Claw had finished speaking, Firepaw turned and crept away toward the sweet smell, which was coming from a group of cats nearby. He found Greypaw sitting among these cats, but that was not the scent he had been following. Sitting opposite Greypaw, between 2 River Clan toms, was Spotted Leaf. Firepaw glanced at her shyly and settled himself beside his friend. "Still no scent of Wind Clan," he mewed to Greypaw. "The meeting hasn't begun yet. They may still come," replied his friend. "Look, there's Running Nose. He's the new Shadow Clan medicine cat, apparently." He nodded toward a small gray and white cat at the center of the group. "I can see why they call him Running Nose," Firepaw remarked. The medicine cat's nose was wet at the tip and encrusted around the edges. "Yep," replied Greypaw with a scornful growl. "I can't see why they appointed him when he can't even cure his own cold." Running Nose was telling the cats about an herb that medicine cats had used in the old days to cure kitten cough. "Since the Two-Legs came and filled the place with hard earth and strange flowers," he complained in a high-pitched yowl, "the herb has disappeared, and kittens die needlessly in cold weather." The cats gathered around him yowled their disapproval. "It never would have happened in the time of the Great Clan cats," growled the Black River Clan queen. "Indeed," mewed the Silver Tabby, "the great cats would have killed any Two-Legs that dared into their territory. If Tiger Clan roamed this forest still, Two-Legs would not have built this far into our land."
Yeah, before those clans, they were like a stronger clan. So yeah, that's pretty much what I understand.
Then Firepaw heard Spotted Leaf's quiet mew. "If Tiger Clan still roamed these forests, we would hardly have made our territory here either." "What's Tiger Clan?" mewed a small voice beside them. Firepaw noticed a little tabby apprentice from one of the other clans sitting beside him. "Tiger Clan is one of the great cat clans that used to roam the forest," Greypaw explained quietly. "Tiger Clan is cats of the night, big as horses with jet black stripes. Then there is Lion Clan. They're—" Greypaw hesitated, frowning as he tried to remember. "Oh, I've heard of them," mewed the tabby. "They were as big as Tiger Clan cats, with yellow fur and golden manes like rays of the sun." Greypaw nodded. "And then there is the
It's basically lion.
other one, Spotty Clan or something like that."
I suspect you're thinking of Leopard Clan, young Greypaw.
Now a voice from behind them.
What about Heine clan? But that's not feral, I know. But technically, like hyenas are more close to cats, so it can count. It can count, you know.
Lionheart! Greypaw greeted his mentor with an affectionate touch of his nose. Lionheart shook his head in mock despair.
Don't you youngsters know your history? Leopard Clan are the swiftest cats, huge and golden, spotted with black paw prints. You can thank Leopard Clan for the speed and hunting skills you now possess.
Thank them? Why? Asked the tabby.
Lionheart gazed down at the little apprentice and answered. There's a trace of all the great cats in every cat today. We would not be night hunters without our Tiger Clan ancestors. And our love of the sun's warmth comes from Lion Clan.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna end for now. So I'm gonna screenshot that so I can know which time, you know. So here. Alright. My beautiful tumble, my beautiful cat. Alright. So yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. I got 4 like. Wow. I didn't expect that. And yeah. I think I'm gonna do another live stream soon. I'm gonna uh do a I'm gonna challenge myself. Like I'm gonna do like 100 push-ups and 100 squat every day. I will say like four time a week. I'm gonna do that. I don't know where I'm gonna make the live stream. I don't think I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna do it through my phone. I'm gonna go to another room and do that. And yeah, and at the same time, I'm gonna make that live stream as well to Warrior Cat. I'm gonna try to do everything in the same time. But yeah, where half of the first um yeah, or the first book. That's good. We're going fast. We're gonna end the book, I think, into next week, or probably before after the weekend. Did you understand anything, Tanker? For me, I just understand that Firepaw was like fighting against another cat clan, and then he kinda broke the clan code, but it wasn't his fault because he's still. Oh my god, he's my brother. But yeah, I'm gonna end one live stream because my brother wants to get an and yeah, I'm not alone, you know. I'm not living alone. Some people want their privacy, you know. So yeah. Yeah, you're gonna learn what time, thank you. I was like this, but you're gonna learn. I probably don't know as well a lot of character, but what time I think we're gonna be more curious and learn. So yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna end the live stream. Goodbye.